Too often we see many persons decide that they don't want to trim their hair ends because as far as they're concerned, if they were to trim their ends or keep cutting their ends, then they will not have long hair or they will not be able to have length retention. But is there any truth in that? First, let us look on some types of split ends. Now, this diagram that you're seeing is not exhaustive, meaning that there are many other types of split ends, but this is just a few.
Now let us take a closer look. We have the traditional split, the deep split, the tapered split, the feather split, the incomplete split, and the knot.
Now, can we fix split ends? So all of those split ends that you saw earlier on that diagram, we might be able to go in with a protein treatment or even a moisture treatment, and we might put on what we call a band-aid, meaning it is temporary. The main thing that you can do to remove split ends is to cut it. And to keep the ends of your hair nice and groomed, then you would have to have a hair routine that includes hair trimming. So whether it's going to be once a month, once every 2 months, but you must have a system in place where you're keeping your ends nicely groomed and nicely trimmed. So let's look on a microscopic image of a split end, and you tell me in the comment section if you would want to keep those kind of ends on your hair. At this moment, after looking at that image, I am pretty sure you would agree with me that your best option is to get it cut off. Now, you might be saying, if I cut my hair, will I retain length? And I'm here to tell you that yes, you will retain length. Let me explain it to you. The average person grows anywhere from 1/4 of an inch each month. So for 2 months, that person would have had 1 inch of new growth, right? So for an entire hair, that person would have had 6 inches of new growth. Remember that we're working with 1/4 of an inch, so that person would have had 6 inches of new growth for the year. So that's 12 months. If that person is taking off, say, 1/4 of an inch, maybe every 2 months, so they would trim their ends and take off at least 1/4 of an inch every 2 months, then that person will still have 4.5 inch of new hair. So are you doing the math with me? So you would have been retaining 4.5 inch every year. If you grow 1/4 of an inch each month, at the end of trimming just 1/4 of an inch each 2 months, which would take you, 2 months would take you basically to 8 weeks, you would have 4.5 inches of new hair at the end of the year. If you're following along, you could multiply that 4.5 inches by 2 year, 3 year, and it would give you an average amount of new growth that you possibly could have in the next 2 to 3 years. So really and truly, trimming the ends or maintaining your ends, keeping the split ends under control, will not only allow you to retain length, but it will also keep your hair end looking nice and healthy. Now, I don't want you to get confused when we talk about keeping your ends trimmed, because some persons feel that they must have their hair tapered or in a blunt cut for the ends to be trimmed. No, that's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is that keeping the ends nice and trim is going to prevent the ends of your hair from looking stringy, or you can basically see through the ends. So for example, if I lift up my hair like this, you can see that you're not seeing through the hair because all the ends are nicely groomed. Now, your ends don't necessarily have to be blunt like this. I personally like to see my hair looking nicely blunt.
So now let's take a closer look at my hair. So as I mentioned earlier, I prefer to have my hair looking blunt. I do not like to see when I'm able to see through the ends. I like to keep the ends nicely groomed, and so that I can have the thickness from the top all the way to the bottom. So as you're looking at my hair, you can see that it is not having a V cut, but rather a more horizontal cut right across. And you can see that it has body all the way from the top all the way down to the ends. So that is how I like to keep my hair. Trimming my ends does not prevent me from having length retention. Of course, you do not have to cut it blunt. Why?
It doesn't matter. As long as you're keeping the ends nicely trimmed, then that is what matters. So you don't necessarily have to have a blunt cut go right across, whether it is a V or a circle, as long as it is nicely groomed and you're not seen through the ends. So I'm not saying that you should go and cut your hair or even to allow your stylist to take off more than what is necessary. All I'm saying is that keeping your ends groomed will not prevent you from retaining length. It will not prevent you from having long, nice, healthy hair. What it will do for you is to help you to maintain your hair and retain length, which is quite the opposite. So don't be afraid. I know a lot of persons are quite afraid in getting their ends trimmed. Now I want you to throw that fear outside and go ahead and trim your ends. If you feel uncomfortable in allowing somebody to dust the ends or trim the ends of your hair, then don't be afraid. Learn how to do it for yourself and dust the ends. I personally trim my ends by myself. So if you are courageous or brave enough, then go ahead and do that. If not, when you go to your stylist, explain to them that you just want the ends to be nicely trimmed, of course. And do not, and I repeat, do not be afraid in getting your ends trimmed. There's no truth that your hair will not grow if you trim the end. In fact, the opposite is quite true. If you would like to see how I trim my hair at home, then I'll leave this video right here for you to watch, and perhaps you too can try and trim your ends at home. If not, don't be afraid to visit the salon next time and ask for a trim. You'll not be disappointed as long as they don't cut your hair all off, because we know that that can happen, right? But let's hope that's not the case. So I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.